You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see everyone telling us who they're picking over Pack One, Pick
Savior
One,
or
Savior or
Necro.
Necro. That's what I want to see.
I do
Everyone's
want, we should,
Savior versus Necro.
maybe we'll put up a poll for that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Hello, and welcome to Sorcery 102 Beyond the Ordinary. I'm Bobby, and I've got my podcast partner here, Stu. Want to introduce yourself?
Howdy, howdy. Yeah, I'm Portland Stu. Welcome to episode 6 is what we're on. Yeah, episode 6 of Sorcery 102. We've been trying to put out an episode a week, and yeah, it's exciting to be 6 episodes in, and this time with video.
With video, yeah, we're trying to improve ourselves a little bit here. Get slightly better audio quality, slightly better video quality. Keep stepping up.
Yeah, and today we're doing Limited 102. So this is just going to be our first dive into the topic of playing Limited and Sorcery. There's a lot to talk about in that topic. So yeah, you want to give a quick rundown of what Limited is, I guess, in case anyone
is new to
it?
Limited is generally 2 different formats. It can either be sealed or draft. With Sorcery, I'm still pretty new to the whole limited thing with Sorcery. I wasn't really a big limited player in Magic either, so limited is not my forte in general. But I think that
although we met at a Magic draft.
We did. That is true.
My last Magic draft I ever played.
The last one I played, well, in paper anyway. So limited's not my forte. So it's kind of just the different animals, lower powered. You have a lot more ordinaries, elites, and uniques matter a lot less. Your powerful stuff is your maybe 1 or 2 exceptionals, and then the rest is filled out with ordinaries. So it's quite a lower power level endeavor, and I think it's interesting because it has a lot more. It's the basic strategy pieces of Sorcery matter a lot in Limited, like how you lay out your sites, how you manage the resources, and it's very skill testing in terms of your basic knowledge of how the game functions and how to have your basic strategy work. So
yeah, I'm a big Limited player. It's definitely my preferred way to play Sorcery, and that is one of the things I love about it is like there is a lot of, like, you know, in all Sorcery there's high rolls and luck involved and whatnot, but it really, like, the playing of the board matters to me more in Limited than it does in Constructed, where like Constructed board position matters a lot in particular ways for particular decks, but a lot of the time it's more about the cards you're bringing to bear and how they work together. Whereas in Limited, you know, you're going to be doing a lot of kind of vanilla 2 power, vanilla 3 power, vanilla 4 power minions. There's not a lot of, like, you're never going to have more than 2 or 3 like really powerful cards in your deck, and even that's rare.
Yeah, it is. I think that because of that, it can feel a bit heavy on, or like it matters a lot more what uniques you open, which can feel challenging in Limited. But in general, the fact when all things are equal and no one grabbed a perfect unique, then the draft and the sealed games are really evenly matched, really fun. Games. That strategy really matters. So.
Yeah, and that was kind of my first topic I thought we'd go over, is sort of the differences between sealed and draft. And I think in sealed, there's a huge amount of like variance in what you might open. Like some sealed pools, you feel like a god among mortals, and other sealed pools, you're like, how do I build a deck out of this? You know?
Yeah, that's so true. On the Sorcerer's Decor sealed league in my draft pool for March is rough. but it's still a really fun experience of how to put that together. And you're right. I think that it's a lot more. It feels a lot more swingy in terms of what bomb was in your sealed pool. So you get to build around that a little bit differently than you would in a draft.
And sealed's great though for newer players too. Like I like sealed a lot as like the preferred format for bringing in new people too, because then they don't have to have like that quick card evaluation that you need in draft, and they get to open 6 packs, which is just fun. And
Yeah.
like you get to like everyone, you get to open packs, which is always a kick. And then you can kind of talk, like you're not fighting over cards, right? So it feels a lot more chill, and everyone wants each other to make the best deck they can.
That
I
makes a lot of
just
sense.
funny. I just go over to our tabletop. I pulled up my most recent online draft deck and my most recent online sealed deck, and just like looking, like talking about the difference in the spread. Like this deck here is a sealed deck, and like it's got a couple playable cards here and there, and like there's a smite in there and whatnot, but it's kind of all over the place. Whereas this last draft deck is much more like cohesive, and I built this deck. You can see there are multiple copies of the same minion. I've got 3 willing tributes to go with my desecrate and the eclipse that I got pack 1. So I'm like building around
Yeah.
a particular powerful spell that I maybe drafted early on, and then leaning into that
Evil.
strategy with lots of evil and willing tribute, and then just bomb Tombstone
Good defensive
Wardens.
piece.
Yeah, Tombstone
Oof.
Wardens is so good in Gothic Limited. It's crazy.
It's amazing. It's an amazing card.
Um,
You got that unique too. Look at that. The thing in the
oh
air.
yeah, the Frozen Horror, or Thing in the Ice. I mean, yeah,
That's it.
that
It's a
was
cool one.
a fun one. Like, and getting, I think I had a Den of Evil or two. So like a turn 2 Frozen Horror. That means like turn 5 it wakes up.
It's
6
pretty
power.
powerful.
Yeah, not too
Insane.
shabby.
Not at all.
Any other thoughts on sealed versus draft?
Yeah, I guess just I agree with your point about it being a really sealed being a better starting point for new players because you just have a set of cards. It's a limited amount of cards. It's set. You don't have any choices except for the deck building, and it just points you in the right direction. I think it's a really great place to start. Drafting, I don't think I've had like 3 or 4 drafts of Gothic, and it's a much more challenging experience for sure.
Well, so let's
Yeah,
maybe move into just sort of the gameplay aspect of limited, because, like we said, it's a lot more positional. Um, like the
yeah,
big tip I got early on in playing limited uh, was the diagonal placement. If your opponent has a minion here, placing your minion diagonal to their minion is kind of the preferred arrangement, because then if they have a gift of the wolf or anything, like, you get to choose if you block their attack when they attack, rather than them getting to choose if they attack you or not.
do you not do that in constructed?
In constructed, I do it, but I think I do it to a less like less religiously, or less like by rote. Like in constructed, I feel like a lot of the time I might be trying to face off or get the trades, and in limited in
Yeah,
particular, like, is constructed.
but we're not early on constructed. I'm just curious. Like I do
Yeah,
that a lot in constructed for sure because I think it matters a lot here because like I think um, the thought process I go through, maybe this is just more common and limited, is if I want to trade, I want to either trade or take no damage for sure, then I'm placing it head on. If I want to have options of maybe trading, maybe taking damage, maybe going in for an attack, like having that agency. That's what I'll do here when I do the diagonal play. And I think that it just, and you're saying in limited, you want to have that additional agency more often, because more often you have a 3-power 3-mana guy with no ability more often, and you're just trying to leverage different pieces to get, instead of going about it from a, I guess, are you saying it's a more of a, does that mean that it's more of a race always, like your starting point is a race?
I mean, I think that's kind of like, I think in limited, the game is almost always decided by, like, I would say 80% of limited games, the first person to get better than 1-for-1 is probably going to win, right?
Yeah.
And definitely the person who gets more trades that are better than 1-for-1 is almost always the winner, right? Like, if I can get 2 of your cards for 1 of my cards, or 1 of your cards for none of my cards, that's why things like Gift of the Wolf are so strong. Like a
Yeah.
cantripping spell that somehow, like, or like Blink back in the day, right? Imagine Blink and Limited just felt broken because they think they put a minion where it's safe from you, and maybe you have a 3-power that was out of range, but then you blink it into range and kill, and you didn't even spend a card because Blink cycled.
Yeah.
So anytime I can kill a 2-power with a 3-power is great. Like, and that's that battle over who's gonna start getting the 2-for-1s and the 1-for-nones
Yeah.
is kind of the heart of limited.
Yeah. That makes sense. So yeah, wanting to be, I guess that kind of leads into wanting to make sure that you're always playing spells. You don't really ever want to be taking turns off.
Yeah.
Needing to spend as much mana as possible every turn, get as much mana efficiency as possible, um, and then hopefully get something down that gets you that trade up. And I think that part of why this Tombstones is so great,
Oh
or
yeah.
Tombstone Wardens is so great, is because it just almost automatically is going to be that 2-for-1 for you, like,
Yes.
because something's got to give here, right? Like if you put this right in front, there's their 2-power thing on turn 3. You've got a 5-power flyer, so you're definitely stopping their attacks. You're definitely stopping trading. If they try to attack in, you're going to be trading positively for yourself. Yeah, I think that kind of gets to the point of why that is like a good one, is because it's going to give you, build in those things, the card advantage. But yeah, I think something that I'm curious about: would you rather be double spelling, or would you rather be spending your full mana amount on a single spell? Um, for you, or
So for
is that
me, I think that's a great question. It So we talk, I mean, many people have discussed this, but like the 4 quadrants of gameplay, right? There's the
mm-hmm.
setup when you're sort of building up your initial board. There's when you're ahead, there's when your opponent's ahead, and then when you're at roughly equal footing.
Yeah,
And I would say if I'm during setup, I want to play the biggest thing I can play, basically, right? Like I would
yeah,
rather play a single 4-power 4-mana minion on turn 5, which is when I hit 4 mana usually, than 2-power minions.
yeah,
But outside of that sort of like initial buildup where we're sort of racing to the biggest threat on the board, and even then, like I often want to play, if I have 2 4-for-4s, I'll play the weaker one to try and draw out the removal, but that's a whole nother conversation.
yeah,
But outside of that initial buildup, I think I'd always rather have more bodies on the board, because there's not a lot of mass removal in Gothic. Like, I think this is particular to Gothic, which is where I've been playing a lot of limited. And like I would rather have a Willing Tribute and a Snallygaster than a zombie horde on turn 7 when I hit my 5 mana, right? There's not as easy a way to handle both of those at once, right? And it comes back to that card trading thing.
That's interesting because, like, I think if I'm looking at an empty board, maybe this is just the way I see these things, but if I'm looking at an empty board, and my opponent has those two spells or those two on the field, and I go ahead and I put out. Obviously, our sites are a mess here, and they don't
Yeah.
make sense. But I think I'd rather be in this. I'd rather be on this side.
Yeah. I
I'd
mean, I
rather
see what you're saying.
because, like, if you're able to like trade one for one, maybe that's the difference, right? Maybe that's the difference. I'm thinking of, like, in a world where I've traded one for one throughout the game, and now we're getting down to our last 3 to 4 cards in hand. You're down to 3. I'm down to 4 now, and you have one extra minion on board. I think I'd rather be in this spot, and I think that's what when I play limited. That's what I try to build toward. Is some point where I have that larger presence. I guess zombie horde's a bad example because I can't move to defend. But, like, right. But, like, here, but I don't know. Like, I guess even like a 4 for 4. I'd rather be on this side because I can move to defend, because then I can block this or block this, whichever one comes in first. And I have options there. And then the next turn I get to attack and kill the other one.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Like, generally speaking, if you can get a big threat on the board that your opponent can't answer, you'll win in limited, right? And so, like, when we get into deck building, like, 4 mana, 4 power, and 5 mana, 5 power are, I would say, the second most valuable thing you're going to find at ordinary and exceptional level.
Yeah.
But the most valuable thing you're going to find is good removal. And
Completely
right,
agree.
so that's why I prefer 2 minions to 1. Is if we both have a Buried Alive in hand, right, I can eliminate all 5 mana you spent with a single card, and you can only eliminate at most 3 mana of what I spent. And if I place my stuff well, it's even kind of hard for you to do that well. But
Right. Yeah. I think that's interesting because, like, you're also talking about the turn 5 getting to 4 mana and turn 7 getting to 5 mana. That's assuming that you draw 0 sites per turn. So you're always
yeah,
drawing spells, and I think that's the um the common, not best practice, is to just always be drawing those spells. Don't draw sites per turn. Always be drawing a spell per turn, and then just use your tap to draw a site ability.
and I think that's
Instead.
especially true. I mean, maybe it's time to talk a little about deck building, because I think the importance of 3 mana, 3 power minions cannot be understated. I was talking to someone who made it to the top 8 of the Sorcery Con Limited event, and they were talking about the loss where they got knocked out, and they were like, yeah, I had a really good deck, but they just kept playing 3 mana, 3 power minions like infinitely. And so I would deal with them, but, like, eventually there were too many 3 power minions that even my good, like, things like a zombie horde, because, like, this is unquestionably better for the player with the two
For sure.
threes, right? Because then they can double block, and the zombie horde only gets to kill one of these 2 3 power minions. And I think
Yeah, for sure.
if you know your deck has that critical mass, like, I aim for a minimum of 7 3 power minions, so that's almost a third of my deck. And
For 3 or less mana,
well, 7
right?
for exactly 3. Like,
Oh, okay.
'cause 2 power minions I think are important. I think one thing in playing the game in limited, we've kind of mentioned this. If you don't play a card on your turn, that is very bad news for your game plan, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're falling behind on board state. So you want to be able to play a 2-drop on turn 2, and even turn 5. Like if you don't hit your, like you probably have 1 or 2 5-drops in your deck. So having a 2-drop and a 3-drop in hand, if you don't, like, I think you're kind of right that most of the time when you hit 5 mana, you'd rather just play your zombie horde and see if they can deal with it, right? I hold it back a lot because if they haven't already sort of shown me their trial by fire or they're buried alive, I assume they have a little bit of removal. But yeah, I think having, being able to play a 2 and a 3 or 2 2s on some of those turns can be nice for just continuing to build your board presence. But definitely that critical mass of 3 mana, 3 power minions, or better than 3. Like, if you were playing in beta, having some autumn unicorns or whatever is nice if you can get them.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, so without the 3 power, so 3 power with costing 3 or less mana. So if you get a Bosk roll, that's better than a horrible hybrids. But
ain't that the truth?
But you want to have, like you're saying, a third of your deck sitting in that 3 for 3 spot. That makes a lot of sense because you probably see. Probably close to, you probably get close to seeing half your deck in a game of limited.
I think this deck I hit the exact curve I usually aim for. Oh, not quite exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 3-drops, and then 6 2-drops. I know I've got 2 more. But yeah, so this deck is 9 3-drops. All things, I mean, these 2 3-drops are kind of not real 3-drops.
Yeah.
Oh my god, another one. Yeah, this deck did great. I mean, it had an eclipse, so that's a pretty nice starting point. But
where are your 4 and 5s? Do you have any 4 and 5s?
So I was short on my 4 and 5s, which I wouldn't usually do this, but because I knew this deck had a plan, and this is, I think, the difference between draft and sealed is I opened Eclipse, pack 1, pick 1, and I knew from that moment I was building air and whatever other element looked open, and I was going evil and low to the ground because I want to swarm them dead. I wanted to pick up desecrates, and there was 2 times I passed on a desecrate to take a minion that I kind of, because I thought, oh, no one's really taking desecrate, this will wheel back to me, and so I wanted to get more desecrates, and I wasn't able to. So I ended up, like, Blightstone was sort of my 24th card that, doesn't really, it's not a card you would usually play in limited, but it was kind of fun.
That is interesting. I'm also looking at I'm interested about the lack of removal in your deck and how that went. Because, like, this, to me, this looks light on removal. That's definitely the way I see.
Yeah, it's lighter on removal than I want to be, without a doubt. But it has some sneaky removal. So Scatter is one of my top picks for, like, sleeper card of the set. I think people are undervaluing Scatter, and Scatter can almost always be removal because you can move something to where you can kill it with a bigger minion, right? They think they're 3 power, you're safe from your 4 power, you move it, problem solved. And then I just got the 1 Ice Lance, and then Frozen Horror its disabling ability makes it kind of like removal. Yeah, Demon Hunter, Static Servant, and then the triple Willing Tribute is
also kind of removal.
Yeah, combined with, like, Stygian Archer, you can do some stuff, but it's definitely short on removal, but it's an aggressive deck. So
yeah.
But this is not, like, I want like I think the ideal deck build, and we can, I wrote an article about like the intro, basics of limited for the Eternal Durdles that maybe we'll take a quick peek at some point in this. Where is it? But the basic distribution I go for is to have basically 17 or 18 minions, and then 7 or 8 spells, right?
Right.
The kind of my basic deck building template, which I think is directly ripped from Froggy Mago and Nick
Yeah,
from
probably.
Sorcerers on the Core. Like, definitely, I studied their videos religiously out the gate when I started playing Sorcerers, because I just wanted to play limited, and they were the only ones who had sort of
Talking about it.
in-depth limited content I could find. But and
Yeah.
these 7 non-minions, ideally 6 of those are removal spells in a perfect world,
Yeah.
right?
Or it can be used as removal in some way or another. Because like, yeah, I think I see, and like, especially if you have Eclipse as one of your things, that's obviously
Mm-hmm.
pointing you toward aggression. But yeah, this is really an interesting deck for sure. I think it relied pretty heavily on the 3 mana slot being able to eventually outrun and outpace your opponent,
Yeah,
um, by using some clever tricks to trade up with a double block or something like that.
yeah. And like one of the hardest games I played with this deck, just I know this turned into an in-depth discussion of a Sorcerers at the Core draft, but someone had a Savior deck that I went against, and Savior is one of the, you know, bombs of the format in Gothic.
Yeah,
Like, and we had one of those games, which happens a lot when I go against Savior, where we got to the point where we each had like 7 minions on board, but it wasn't advantageous for either of us to attack into the other one, right? Because
right.
right, and we just ended up in these crazy stalemate scenarios, and like eventually, yeah, like
A
I think,
scatter really helps in that case, or
yeah,
desecrate. Those would really
well,
help
yeah,
in that spot.
yeah, Desecrate is huge against Ward if you can get your minion bigger than their warded minion.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic. So then,
So
yeah,
oh, so yeah, your general spread there you mentioned was 7 or 8 3 drops, and then you want to have or three for threes basically. And then you want to kind of have a split of half your deck above that and half your deck below it is kind of what I think you mentioned before. So that means
yeah,
your 10 remaining minions should be 5 less than threes and 5 greater than threes. Um, and that I think that was something that was interesting to me is because like the way I think about limited for this is I think of 3 and 4 drops as their own category. So when I break it up in my head, I think my half of my deck should be 3 and 4 drops. That's how I do the math in my head, and when I'm building a deck. So then if I'm looking at 24 spells, I'm looking at 12 to 10 to 12 3 and 4 drops is how I think of that. And I think I'm one of the weird people who is actually likely to draw a sight for turn every now and again, to get to that 4th mana on turn 4, because I think of that's how I build my decks. Maybe that's why I lose so much in limited, but um, yeah,
I mean, sometimes it's good.
yeah. So I think that's just an interesting. I mean, everyone has their own rubrics, right? Everyone breaks it down their own way. But I think that because everything, or I think you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned savior as an avatar being so powerful as an upgrade to spellslinger. I think that these 4 exceptional avatars, they're just really important to grab as soon as you can in the draft.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think
I
that
think
there's
Harbinger that might not be as true for, but
y-
definitely Savior and Necromancer, and then Persecutor as sort of the third place, but still really good. That's like when you
yeah,
were saying that about going to 4 mana. The one time I find myself doing that is when I'm Spellslinger and the other person isn't, because then I'm already up a card, and then I feel like I can afford taking the
for
tempo at
that
the
site.
expense. Yeah, but yeah,
That is
this
interesting.
is yeah, but avatars in limited are huge. I mean, if for no other reason that you're always going to have your avatar. So an avatar that brings value to the board is kind of the best thing. Like when I think about my draft priorities, my number one priority is getting Savior or Necromancer.
Yeah,
Number two is super bombs, things like Lord of Lies, Baelor, like minions that will kind of win the game on their own if they hit the board. And then number three is strong removal. And then it goes into like regular level bombs, and then 3 powers, and then less, all the other stuff. But yeah, these avatars can just give you so much value.
yeah, and they're all these 3 are in the or these 4 are in the exceptional slot, right? And I think
Yeah,
that it kind of goes like this in terms of power level, right? Where
yeah,
your Necro and Savior are up here on the top, your Persecutor is just underneath that, and then the Harbinger is probably down here somewhere, like
yeah. Like
like this maybe.
yeah, there's sort of close. Like it depends on what you drafted. Like Harbinger, I've been wrecked by a Harbinger in draft before. Because if they get a good roll on their portal site, like if they get your starting location as their little portal, so Harbinger, you get 3 random spots where the first minion you play each turn can be, or you can cast 1 minion to one of those spots each turn, even if it's not your site, for 1 less, right? And that, like, putting a 3-drop on turn 2, a 4-drop on turn 3, like if you can hit those marks with Harbinger and have it landing on your opponent, or at least your opponent's site,
Huge.
it's hard to recover.
Yeah, I think even though we're saying and kind of jokingly saying it's down here in terms of power level, if I saw a Pack 1 Harbinger, I'd take it.
What?
I
You're
think
crazy.
you think I'm
Maybe.
crazy. I think
I
that
don't.
it gives you so like I mean, like what's the worst that happens? I guess it depends on the exceptionals or the other exceptionals and
Yeah.
stuff in the pack. But like, I if my first pick, which half the time in draft, your first pick, unless it's one of these, is just going to be you don't always get to play your first pick, right? So like
Yeah.
a lot of times you pick a harbinger and you get to see if that deck is open. So you're looking
Yeah.
for the void walk. You're looking for all the forsakens.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking for all those things that are just going to really
Yeah. The
give you that extra.
Shogoths.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all the things and the earth one that's a giant and everything with void walk
Yeah.
you're keeping an eye out for. But then if you don't see any of that, then you're just what'd you really miss out? Because you end up
Yeah.
playing your spell slinger anyway. I don't know. That's how I see a first pick harbinger. But
I think that makes sense. Like, I I very often first pick the best minion in the pack and don't play it. I think that's a really good point, right? Like, because I
yeah,
just end up not being able to go that element. That element's not what's open. And
I think the thing
yeah,
I think the thing that makes this go down here in this lower category is pack 3. You're not taking a harbinger pick 1.
no
Pack
way.
3, you are taking a necromancer pick 1. Like
Yeah,
if if in that second and third pack, you're not going to grab this first. You're not going to grab it for sure. But like if you see one of these two, you should be grabbing them because it doesn't matter what you're doing. These are going to be good.
Yeah. Even Persecutor, I'm almost always grabbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I got a Persecutor, in the round of 64 at Sorcery Con. I think I got Persecutor Pack 2, Pick 4, which, I'm sure...
Maybe the Savior player already picked their Savior.
Yeah, well, I think the Savior player is who opened it.
Yeah.
and who beat me with their Savior. So that's understandable. But 3 other people said, nah, I'll pass on the Persecutor. I guess one of them had a Necro, so...
Yeah. I just think, last time we drafted together, I passed you a Persecutor Pack 1. And I should not have done that. I got lucky and got a Pack 3 Pick 1 Necromancer, but I shouldn't have passed that Persecutor. But you should be prioritizing those avatars. I think that's really the point here, is especially those 4, the ones you're going to see more often. It makes sense to prioritize getting a better avatar, because these 2 are obviously going to be getting you a rectangle often, right? Like you just pay 1 mana for rectangle every turn with Necromancer. Savior a little less though.
But here's the big question: Pack 1, you see Necro and Savior in your pack. Which one do you take?
Is that possible?
It's possible, yeah.
Oh, I'm taking Necro.
Really? Wow, Bobby. Cater to your avatar.
Yeah, I know. I love my Savior decks, but I think that's actually an interesting question though, right? Because on some level, because what is the difference between these two? Because you get to pay 1 mana for some effect. Occasionally, you get to pay 2 mana for 2 of the same effect with Savior, but most of the time you're just paying that 1. I think because of how randomly evil the set is, it makes more sense to pick Necromancer, because you're more likely to open a Lord of Lies and a Stygian Archers and Forsaken, and then you're like, oh, well, these are good minions, so that's good, but they're just not synergizing with my...
Oh, interesting.
Because
you can't play them in Savior. I mean, you would, I'd still play Stygian Archer, but I wouldn't probably play Forsaken.
Yeah, I mean, and Savior also pushes you specifically. It wants you to be playing Earth for sure, if for no other reason than the sites that pull these guys out. Because the only one, the Penitent Knight, is the only one that's wardable.
Yeah.
So it also pushes you into a specific element. Because when you grab a Pack 1 Savior, your next picks should be looking pretty heavily at Earth.
Yeah. I would definitely pick Savior in that situation.
Really? Why? I'm really curious to hear.
I think Necro makes a lot of sense. The other reason why Necro makes sense is there's 4 minions that directly use skeletons to recur. And like I had a draft where I pack 1 Necro, and then someone passed me pick 2 of pack 1, the Zombie Bruiser, and I thought, oh, I win this draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a recastable 4-power minion. But Savior to me is actually the more powerful ability. I think because of that, like what we were discussing earlier, where you were sort of saying, I'd rather have a single 5-power minion than a 2 and a 3. And I was sort of like, oh, well, if you have the 1 5-power, I can just, it's one thing to remove. But a ward makes everything you have 2 things, almost, right?
Yeah. That's interesting.
And that, I feel like the power level of that in the limited format, where there's not like there's no one has, especially in Gothic Limited, there's very few minions that get a once per turn ability that can break wards. So they're basically guaranteed to have to spend cards to break your wards.
Yeah, that's true. Or use their sites or something. Yeah, like, and that's
Yeah.
actually, you're basically, we're saying that we were talking so highly about having 2 3 mana 3/3s on the board. But if you're playing with Ward, this is now 4 mana for 2 3/3s in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, like it's they're gonna have to, yeah, it gets to fight twice before it dies, almost guaranteed. Like with a few super weird exceptions that are
Yeah,
hard to hit.
yeah.
So
With your
I think
opponent playing Persecutor and a Begone, but
yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, because Begon doesn't target, right?
yeah, yeah.
Oh man, that's nice. So yeah, I think
But
they're both incredible. I've never seen them both in one pack, but I do think it's technically possible. And yeah,
yeah, I haven't looked too deeply into what collation is possible, but um, yeah. So I think the next thing we had on our list here was avoiding 1 power minions. We've talked a lot about the 3 power
yeah,
minions and how awesome they are. Um, but the fact that you're spending a whole card for 1 power with most likely no effects, it's just going to be very underwhelming.
yeah.
And I think avoiding them is a good call. And it's kind of the same thing that. And I guess I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the 1 mana 2 powers in this set, um, in terms of
So
and how those match up versus the 1 mana 1 powers, um,
yeah,
or even
so
two
this
mana 1 powers, I guess.
yeah. Well, so on the topic of 1 mana or anything that's 1 power, however many mana it costs, it basically having a 1 power minion is rarely valuable. So it's its ability that matters. So like a plague rat, especially in a savior deck, is pretty darn good.
Yeah,
Um, but Pith Imp, I don't know. We debate this a lot with the other local players here. A lot of people are big Pith Imp fans because it kind of eats one of their cards, and you go hide in a corner. And it's sort of like you got a 1 for 1, and it's you paid 2 mana, and hopefully you snagged something that's worth more than 2 mana. But if the imp ever
yeah.
dies, they get their card back. I don't
That
know.
I'm pretty low on Pith Imp as well, but I think that there are a lot of people who are high on it with Wiccan tools in particular,
Yeah,
because that lets you cast it. That feels a bit too cute to me, but I think
yeah,
Wiccan tools is good enough by itself in a lot of cases, um, where just the fact that it can cycle and give something spellcaster, just the fact that it's in a lot of ways, it's my deck is now 23 cards, um,
yeah,
and it also helps with threshold fixing. Um, I think that it's just good enough by itself, but then pairing that with Pith Imp can feel good. Um,
yeah. They're both just playable enough on their own that if you don't have better cards to like, I'm always going to put a ghoul in my deck over either of those two cards. Is kind of how I feel. But
yeah,
if I don't have another ghoul, like I'd play either of those cards. Like they're both acceptable. They're not things I don't want in my deck,
yeah,
right? Uh, and then to your point of the 1 cost 2 power minions, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, especially after Sorcery Con. Um, that those avatars we talked about in a oops, in a draft, right? A lot of people are going to be on Spellslinger, but there's a pretty high chance someone's going to hit a Necro or a Savior or a Persecutor, and that someone might be you and it might be someone else. But I think I'm going to start drafting with a little more eye towards that possibility, right? And so the townsfolk are so good. They are Holy Knights. They're better than Holy Knight in a Savior deck, right?
Yeah.
So if it's early in the draft and I get down to like my 7th or 8th pick, where like maybe I'm considering for something that's not that impressive. Maybe I'm considering like
I'm gonna hurt your
what's
feelings. A willing tribute and a
these. I mean,
townsfolk.
Willing Tribute. I'll probably take over Townsfolk because it combos late game to get your finisher and stuff. But
I think
like
they're closer.
Barrow
I think they're
White,
closer for me, but than they are for
yeah,
you.
they are
Bear
pretty
White's a good
close. But
one. Yeah.
right, like Barrow White is another one where it's like, oh, I might get a Necro, and then this is a recurring 2 mana 2 power, which is pretty nice. But the Townsfolk is a fine 2 power drop, great for double spelling mid game, and I'm sort of hedging my bets in case I get a savior.
Yeah, and it also helps you in those spots where we were talking about they have a 4-power minion, you have a townsfolk and a ghoul.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And that was
You're
4
in
mana
you're
for
in
me,
heaven.
right?
4 mana
Yeah.
for you. You have 5 power. They get to kill your ghoul, but you are left with a townsfolk, and that's
Yeah.
so having an eye toward that trading up, and I think maybe that's what they help you do just in general. Is just trade up. Um,
Yeah. Trade up and be cheap. Like the fact that they're 1 mana, I think, is not trivial. Like I almost prefer a Sarava townsfolk to a Survivors of Sarava at this point.
yeah, I actually am. I'm definitely on that. I'm on the train with that because I think that I've had too many survivors who without stealth.
Yeah.
Um,
Like and Survivors, like the cute thing is if you hit a torch and pitchfork, you can get it on a survivor and then you kind of have your torch and pitchfork. But I don't know, I lose those games all the time when I have a torch and
yeah,
pitchfork on survivors because I spent 2 cards to sort of get this +1 aura on my ordinary minions. But like, wouldn't I have rather just had 2 ghouls than a torch and pitchfork and a survivor?
if you had a necromancer, you'd probably be super happy with that.
Yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
yeah, context matters though a little bit there, right? But I think you're right though that in a spellslinger deck, I'd rather have I'd rather have a couple of horrible hybrids.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's
Um.
the something that's funny to me is I see in drafts when I see the sites that give me access to the minions, I'm grabbing those as soon as I can. But when I actually see the actual 3 power, 3 mana, I don't take those as often as I should. I think I need
Oh
to
yeah.
put those higher on my pick list because I
Yeah.
think I'm sleeping on how good they are. The sites are amazing, but the fact that these can also go in your spell deck is better.
Yeah. Yeah. The sites that generate the 3 power minion, obviously, super good because that's sort of like I always think of it as like a 3 power kettle top, right? It sort of does like a kettle top is an on rate minion that gets you a site, and this is a site that gets you an on rate minion. It's kind of
Oh
the
man,
same.
those sound like identical sentences, but a site that it gets you an on-rate minion is so much better.
It is. It's better. Yeah. So yeah, these are great, no doubt about it. But just having 3 power bodies is huge, and one threshold 3 power like can't be like a lot of times threshold is an issue.
Yeah, that's one we haven't talked about at all. What's your
Hmm.
what's your thought on threshold breakdowns? For me, I'm on 2 colors. I'm 2 elements. I'm never putting a third element in my deck unless something went so horribly wrong. Um, I can't imagine putting a third element in my deck. Um,
Yeah.
even
Well,
with even with the Twilight Blooms or the Blooms, I still don't want to do it. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
yeah, I'm there with you. I've made the mistake many times in Gothic, and I think it was more acceptable in AL and like some other previous sets, like when you're doing AL and beta together too. There's like a lot more low threshold cards. And Sam from Rose City Sorcery, uh, in the Sorcery Con event, made day 2 with a 3-color deck.
Wow.
But he did it by prioritizing single threshold cards, and it was just like his sealed pool was one of those bad sealed pools where it was like there's not a good deck in here or a great deck in here, so I'm just going to play the solid on rate minions that have 1 threshold, and I'm going to play 3 elements, and I think you can get away with that, but generally
Yeah,
speaking, no.
you've got to be careful to not have anything more than 2 threshold requirement on anything.
Yeah.
You can't have any 3 threshold requirements. But yeah, that's interesting. Another thing that I don't think we've talked about this for constructed either, but something that I always try to think about is when I build my site deck, I'm always thinking of how likely I am to have what threshold on what turn. So if you're in that three element deck and you've got 12 sites, you've got 4 air, 4 fire, 4 water sites, right? How likely are you, at what point are you likely to have seen 2 of any given threshold? And the answer is so late in the game.
So late.
So late in the game. So in that 3-color with that single threshold, that makes sense to me, because like having a single of each threshold, you're likely to have seen 1 of each by 6 sites. I think would be the number. The number would be between 5 and 6 sites. You're likely to have seen, or you are more than likely to have seen at least 1 threshold of each element at that point. But you still have to get to 6 sites, and that can be you get to mulligan around your hand, obviously, which helps. But yeah, I would still only expect to see it at 6 sites.
Yeah, generally 2 threshold or 2 element is the way to go in limited.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid of 3 threshold cards. Like, I think most of them are good enough cards that you should probably play them. Like the Zeppelin.
Are there any at exceptional and ordinary?
There is exactly 1 that I can think of at exceptional. Zeppelin of Zealots is a 3 fire threshold, 5 mana, 4 power minion. And I was very low on this card and am steadily moving up on it.
Really?
I mean, 1, the value of ward just keeps going up and up for me, which also raises the value of sites that can break wards. Because I do think that is a really good way around ward, is taking Silent Hills and a Cursed Desert and I forget what a Cursed Tower for breaking wards. But Zeppelin of Zealots, like 4 power, is a really great number to be at, and being warded and airborne while you have that ward makes it such a like powerful board control piece when you play it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The good news about this with the 3 threshold here is you're on 5 mana, so
Exactly.
In a 2 element deck, you're pretty close to that.
Well, and yeah, like the better example is all of the minor angel, like the non-archangels. The elite angels are all, there's 1 in each element. They're 3 threshold, 6 mana, 4 power, airborne with ward and some other ability. And all of those are solid bombs that I'll play if I'm in that element, you know?
Absolutely. I guess 4 power is a pretty big deal. The Zeppelins, I'm still kind of meh on the Zeppelin, but maybe I'm
Yeah.
missing something. So I just haven't played it. I also haven't seen it in play. It just looks like a worse version of the one from beta, which I didn't like playing in beta limited. The other Zeppelin. I can't remember what it's called, but
Oh yeah, the airship, the
yeah,
air
the
one.
airship. Yeah.
That one was 3 power though,
And
or
4 mana,
was it 4?
and 2 threshold, and
Yeah,
could carry minions. It didn't have ward, and it
yeah,
always had airborne. So like this
yeah,
just reads like a worse version of it. Is kind of where my brain went. But I hear you though, because ward is much more valuable than it sounds on
yeah.
rate.
And I think like to jump back to the topic from earlier, but playing around the powerful archetypes in the set, I think, is a huge part of limited. So like Murder of Crows, like we all knew it was a good card, but I often pass it in drafts, even if I'm in air. Like I think I was taking Ghoul over Murder of Crows for a long time, but at this point, I'm Murder of Crows has to be a really high pick for me because it answers ward and it answers skeleton spam.
Yeah,
And you can also think of it as 6 mana to do 2 damage to all enemy minions, which is
it's a big deal.
like, yeah, I mean, is that worse than Wreathed in Righteousness, which is 5 mana to do 2 damage?
Duty
And like,
some.
yeah, I
Very
mean, you get
specific.
to ward something, but like, yeah,
I'd rather have a murder of crows.
exactly. Yeah, and I was so high on Wreathed in Righteousness just because I think there's so few area of effect damage spells, which are a really good way to hit 2-for-1s.
We just all, even though we see there's no grid on murder of crows, but it is still
Yeah,
an area of effect spell. It just
yeah,
affects everywhere.
exactly.
Um,
That happened to me. Oh man, I dropped my Torch and Pitchfork one game against a necromancer to try and like it was a game I was losing no matter what. But then once I dropped my Torch and Pitchfork, they were able to like hit me with a couple skeletons on my things that were more than 2 power, and then double Murder of Crows and literally wipe my whole board.
oh man, that's value right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that murder of crows should be higher than ghouls.
Hmm.
I'm on board with first murder of crows is higher than first ghouls. I'm on board with that. What are we thinking? Second murder of crows is higher than first ghoul, or is it
Oh,
second murder
interesting.
of crow is better than second ghoul? Because
I had
I'm
not
totally.
thought of that.
It just like whenever I hear the it's higher priority, I just like how much higher priority. To me, I think if
Yeah.
one first was higher than first, but second is not higher than first. Is how I would evaluate that.
I mean, it
Um,
depends how bad the rest of your removal is, right?
yeah, that's
Like,
fair.
because yeah, that's to me, 2 Gift of the Wolf is always incredible. 2 Smite
Oh
is
yeah,
always incredible. Like 2 Murder of Crows. I mean, if I have a Flame Strike, no, not going for that second Murder of Crows.
yeah,
If all I've drafted for removal so far is an Ice Shards, maybe I take that second Murder of Crows over Ghoul.
yeah. I guess it depends a little bit on the rest of your draft, but like in a vacuum, I think that that's just it's a question worth considering. I think.
Yeah, yeah. You don't really generally like you don't want 2 in every deck. Whereas
Yeah,
Ghoul, you kind of do want 2 ghouls in every deck.
yeah, and I think that's kind of where I was getting at, right? Is like it is a really important thing. It's important to get your first one, um,
Yeah,
but I don't think it's that important to get your second one.
yeah. I think that's a fair point. Well, we got a lot of good stuff in the works for you all. Like Bobby and I have been doing intensive testing to try and put together an office hours on how to beat Mist. And so far, the answer is just B mist. But
yeah, I'm really hoping to have a better answer for us. But yeah, that is where
yeah,
we're.
we're gonna do more research.
Oh,
um,
yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah.
keep on playing Beyond the Ordinary, folks.
See you next time.